If there was a mashup of all the times on my show that I said I should have listened to my wife, this would be probably the fucking intro to it. She said, keep being yourself and you will end up where you belong.
Yeah, over a long enough time horizon, it's factually true what your wife said. Like everyone wants to talk about, how do I scale my business? It's not about getting bigger. You have to get better before you get bigger.
Yeah.
And if you get better, everything just gets bigger on its own. And it sucks because it's a long journey. What is the expression? Everybody overestimates what they can do in a year and underestimates what they can do in 10. It's 10 years. Like if you're 18, that means you're 28. If you're 28, it means you're 30. If you're 30, it means you're 48. Who gives a shit?
Shawn French, what up? This one luck, I let the pain inspire me. I put my all in everything I'm doing. Up until it's done, I'm me for the entirety. I put it in overtime, I be working. Just know I'ma go for mine, cause I earned it. They watching, I know it's time. I confirmed it. A whole society determined success.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode. I am your host, Shawn French. Today I have with me a good friend, Derik Fay, who is a serial entrepreneur, been an entrepreneur for most of his life. In 2002, he founded 3F Management, which is a venture capitalist company. And this guy has built over 30 businesses and helped them exit successfully with 7, 8, 9-figure payoffs. He is a dude that, I hold dear to my heart. Good dude. And the thing that I love about Derik is he started from nothing. He was born into poverty and made his way. And by 2023, he was worth some amazing, obscene amount of money. But the thing that I love about him mostly is you would never know it. Humble dude, super excited to have him on the show. Derik, welcome, buddy.
My friend, we finally did it.
Dude.
We've only been trying for what, 3 years?
3 years. So it's funny because I walked in, the team's like, you got Derik today, right? I was like, Jace did. And I'm like, yeah, man. He's like, dude, long time coming. Holy shit, man. How long did that take? I was like, well, you know what, man? I could think of it like that.
Yeah.
Right? Because we've been talking about it for quite some time. Sure. Hey, let's do this. And then it just didn't work out. And then, but when I really boiled down to, I was like, no, this is when it was supposed to happen.
Everything happened.
Because now the show is in such a different place than it was 3 years ago. I'm like, why burn the interview if it doesn't need to be where it's at right now? So I'm jacked to have you on at this point, man.
Sometimes too, the easiest things are the hardest things to get done.
Yeah, dude, seriously. It's like
see each other all the time. Yeah, hey, we'll do it. And then
you live like 20 minutes from each other. And it's almost like I see people in, West Virginia more than I see you. So it's just like, it's crazy. But dude, so what's been going on, man?
Well, first, thank you for the last part of the intro, because it's the thing that I pride myself the most, which is you said that you wouldn't know it. Mm-hmm. And because of where and we'll get into all of this, because of where I started, a lot of my peers don't act in accordance with what I think a successful man should act. Mm. And so thank you for that compliment.
What do you think? Let's dig into that one. Let's unpack it. Like, what is the disconnect, right? Because, they don't act in accordance of what a successful man looks like.
Yeah. Well, everybody's opinion is different on that.
Sure.
But I think in a nutshell, I think fast success creates no appreciation, mm-hmm. and a slow success for guys like us who came from nothing. Mm-hmm. And although it may seem like I'm an overnight success, mm-hmm. or you're an overnight success, we know the truth.
Yeah, dude.
It was not years, not a decade. It was decades of ridiculously hard work. And just like working out or hitting a baseball or riding a bike, there's a muscle memory to success. Mm. What I mean by that is someone that has put in the years. We understand and remember what it was like to be without, to not have. At least for myself, I was looked down on at a period of my life. I was told I was ridiculous. I was told I could never do it. So you better believe I would never do that to somebody else. And so that for me is what a successful man is.
I love that, man. And I agree with that, because I look back at the beginning of my journey in building the show and building the brand. It's like, there was so much noise surrounding the fact that, like, who the hell are you to do this?
That's right.
Right. Who are you to do this? Like, what gives you the right?
That's right.
And at some point, I thought to myself, like, they might be right. They might be.
Sure.
But it's not any of my business or what they think about what I'm doing.
Right.
I'm going to execute this the best of my ability, and we'll see where it ends up, man. Yeah. Because, you mentioned something interestingly, like, I would never treat somebody like that because that's how I was treated.
That's right.
When I was starting, like, man, there's a lot of different people that come to me now, and a lot of times when you grow to a certain point, you say, oh my gosh, like my DMs won't stop. Like everybody wants something from me.
You're complaining about the things that you always wanted.
I love it.
Yeah, I do.
I love when somebody on the other side of the world goes, dude, like, can I talk to you?
What a great compliment.
I'm like, absolutely. This is great because I get the opportunity to help them see things differently. Yeah. Because a lot of times when you start, especially now because it's so visible as social media, there's so much noise and people telling you you can make $100,000 in 30 days.
Right. Which isn't true. Typically.
It's not, right? Like
it's not.
In most cases.
That's right.
In most cases, you have to have a portfolio and different things moving in certain areas in a flow and everything like that for something like that to happen, or a fine-tuned business that has massive lead flow, massive systems. But, I like to be there for those people who call me and say, it's been 5 months. I've tried everything. It's a dead end everywhere. I said, dude, 5 months?
Exactly. Yeah, that's not a long time.
It feels like an eternity when you're in it, though.
It does.
Right?
It does.
If you think back to when you just started.
Yes.
How did you ever have moments like that where you sat there and said, I feel like it's been forever, but then you had someone else come in and tell you like, hey man, look, you're just getting started?
Yes and no. So I've had those moments and still have those moments, but I didn't have, and this is not, I didn't have anybody. Everybody has influence. Everybody has, but I'm going to age myself. I'm 46. It wasn't like it is now where there were coaching seminars and mentor. It wasn't what it is. In fact, entrepreneurship was a curse word. Mm-hmm. You were a fool if you wanted to be an entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. Like, how dare you want to do something so silly? Yeah. And so it was just completely different. And it's funny you say the 5 month thing. There was for an example, there was a space that I was negotiating on when I was building the gym franchise that you're familiar with.
Yep.
I negotiated on that space for 4.5 years. Every 6 months, I went back. It was still empty. I said what I wanted. We got closer. So the delayed gratification. And then, fast forward to about a week and a half ago, I've got a partner in my credit card processing company, and they were freaking out because the deal was taking more than 30 days. Like, there's no way this is going to happen. It's been 30 days. And so that's the dichotomy between a young entrepreneur and a seasoned entrepreneur. And you can just like a dad telling an 18-year-old boy, hey, son, if you do this, this is going to happen. It doesn't matter. You have to experience it for yourself. Yeah. Otherwise, it doesn't really, it doesn't marinate. It just doesn't sit with you the way that experience gives you that insight.
I agree, man, because it's like, deals that take 30 days, that's transactional.
It's arbitraging,
right?
In my opinion. Yep.
And so when we look at, like you said, 4.5 years to negotiate your space, right? And then from that point, it grew massively. You were very successful in your exit and everything like that. And I think it's to the credit of, I read something on you is just, you see things differently. Mm-hmm. Like, you're able to pick up on things that certain people aren't able to pick up on entrepreneurship and deal structure, et cetera. Sure. Can you talk on that for a little bit?
Where it came from or how I look at things? Maybe
both, man, both.
Yeah. I mean, I think it started with my childhood. And so, not to get too much into the weeds, and this is not a victim statement, but it's a part of my DNA. Sure. Had a very, very difficult childhood. And when I say difficult, single mom, poverty, Section 8, horrific abuse, like all of the reasons you could imagine to not become something. But it taught me a lot of things. It taught me resilience, but more than anything, to answer the question, I started looking at the world completely different for completely different reasons than most people do. A lot of kids, most kids, almost all kids at that age, are not worried about a lot of things. They're not worried about, how do I talk to this adult so that he doesn't hurt me? He walked in the door. Is the look on his face mean that he is intoxicated or not? And how do I respond? And so, it took me years to really think through this. And I believe that's really where I started to be able to read individuals, read situations, and interpret them in really, really quick time. And that has served me incredibly well throughout the years. And I think the second part is I accept absolutely nothing at face value. And so when I say I challenge everything, it doesn't mean I'm that guy that's you're wrong. In fact, I always am the one to say, you know what, you might be right. I'll always have a position. I'll always have an opinion, and I'll always share it. But I'm always the first person that if you give me compelling evidence to the contrary, to go, that's fantastic. Let's go that direction.
Okay.
I lost my train of thought there, but I think those are the two components that have kind of added up to me being called the deal structure guy. So if I'm brought in to be a shadow CEO, or if there's a board deadlock, you've got a group of individuals, highly educated, highly opinionated, and they all have one specific direction that they want to go. And as you can imagine, it's just a traffic jam. And so I'm very good at seeing through the noise and allowing everyone to feel heard, but gently, let's just call it herding sheep into the direction. The loudest voice in the room almost never wins, contrary to popular belief. And the guy that doesn't speak doesn't either. So there's a delicate balance to deal negotiation and communicating with people. And I teach my children, both my daughters, the number one skill in life is knowing how to speak to someone. And that doesn't really have it's not so much about what you have to say. Like I can sit with somebody at a bar, as I often do, and say, if we talk for 30 minutes, I talk for 2 minutes, and they leave that conversation saying, I like and trust that guy. Why? Because you listen to the individual and you bounce back and you follow the rhythm of what they want to communicate. Everybody's so intent on giving. Let me show you what I know. Let me show you where you should go, versus sit back, let them get it out. And then it's a slow guidance.
It's interesting because we're the same age.
Yep.
And I look at, the things that you said about your background. There's a lot of parallels with mine, right? So, I was pretty much raised the first 9 years of my life by my mom and my grandma. And then, later on, my mom remarried and became my dad, right? It's like, he's my dad. But there was also a lot of activity going on, like when I was super young, going to churches, coming home with boxes of food. Right. And not only that, once my mom met my dad, who was in the Navy, they would have parties constantly. So I was around all these adults and I was trying to navigate. If I look back, I'm trying to navigate how to speak to everybody. Right. And understand a world concept when I'm, in my
child.
Yeah. I'm a child.
You're a baby.
And I'm sitting there in an apartment and then eventually a house in my little play teepee hanging out. And there's kegers going on and I'm sitting there hiding because I don't know what's going on.
That's right.
Right. And I don't understand it. But what happened as I grew up, I was able to have conversations with anybody. And this was a skill that was back when my dad was reading me the Riot Act, like, yo, dude, if you don't make it in baseball, what are you going to do? You don't have any other skills. You can't work with your hands.
Right.
And they used to make me angry for a long time. Now I embrace it and I thank him for it, because all he was trying to do was make me aware of maybe my shortcomings and what my skills were, which was baseball. But I said to him, I'm like, this is what I said to him in high school. I go, well, no, like people like me and I can speak to anybody.
Yeah.
A very good conversationalist. He goes, like,
incredibly undervalued skill.
Right. But at that time, there wasn't this.
Right.
It's like, you can't make a living out of that, Shawn. Like, what are you going to do? And so anything that I did, whether it was coaching baseball, being a teacher, and then working in payroll, then the medical industry, it was all this test. This is the pre-work for this. So like, I see things differently too, from a very creative standpoint on relationship-based stuff. Like, I always felt that if I can find relationships that are the reciprocity level's high, I could survive. I can grow something.
That's right.
And that's what's going on here. So like, I see a lot of parallels in just the, young boy trying to figure it out, like trying to understand adults, how to communicate. I think it served me.
Absolutely served. 100%. And you crediting your father is an incredible trait that I see very, very rarely. And I just call it accountability. Like, no matter what happened to us, what happened for us, whether it was good or bad, we have control over what we do with it in the future. And I don't hear that spoken to enough. So good for you.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's, and I've been caught up in the other side of it too. Like,
you have to go through it to get to it.
Dude, it was,
I mean, that's true with everything.
Yeah. I mean, like, it was funny because I was at Jason's Deli with my family, my 3 kids and my wife.
Yeah.
And it was, I remember the date. It was September 28, 2024.
Okay.
I hadn't talked to my dad in years. He texted me, hey son, happy birthday. I'm like, my birthday's in a month.
Well, he's early to the party.
He's early to the party. I was like, Dad, I was like, hey, thank you. But today's my birthday. October 28th is my birthday.
Yeah.
And he goes, yeah, October 28th, 1979. I said, no, 1978. But I'm like, what's up? And he goes, well, I'm in the hospital. You know, I wanted to wish you a happy birthday. I think really what was going on at that point, because at first it triggered me.
Sure.
Then I got curious, like, what's going on?
Yeah.
And he goes, well, I'm, have an infection. I potentially might have to have my foot amputated. So this guy sitting in a hospital bed, potentially about to lose his foot, which he didn't, thinking about me,
right,
wishing me a happy birthday. I could take it as he doesn't know when my birthday is.
That's right.
Or that he thought enough that he needed to wish me a happy birthday because he wasn't going to be able to that day because he's had his foot amputated. So at that point, I realized something, man. Like, I really have to drop the bullshit with my dad. Like, let's leave out all the things that I disagree with him about, how, he did things with my mom, or things that he said, or maybe words that the word that he broke to me many times. The very core level is my dad.
Yep.
So, I don't think I understand work ethic without him.
Sure.
Because I don't think it would have been there.
Yep.
And so like,
same for me.
That was the level for me.
Yeah.
Like, that was a telling moment, to your point of like, yeah, there's responsibility now, but for years, dude.
No, I was a victim for a minute.
Oh, man.
And by a minute, I mean a reasonable period of time.
Yeah.
Yep. Because when you go through stuff, at least for me, I won't speak for anybody else, I felt like the fact that I had just survived meant I was special. And that was enough.
Mm-hmm.
Now the world owed me something.
Yeah.
And that didn't work out well.
Doesn't.
Because the world doesn't give a shit what happened to you. And it's cold and it's heartless and it's unfortunate, but it's just factually true. And it really bothers me because I have siblings and family members and friends, and we all know lots of people who spend their entire precious life living as a victim and losing out on all of the beautiful things they probably could have done because of something that happened years ago, decades ago. And this is not me being insensitive and saying, just let it go, because it's not that easy. Trauma lives with you forever, but you do have the choice to push it aside and use it as something that makes you rise versus an anchor that pulls you down.
It's crazy you say that because, I'm going to speak about it freely here. My mom, when she was 8, she was driving in a vehicle with, her mom, which is my grandma, her dad and her brother. So my mom was 6, her brother was 8, and, her dad, I don't know how old he was, probably in his 30s or 40s. And, coincidentally, I looked just like him. Mm-hmm. And they were hit head on, drunk driver, killed my grandfather, eventual grandfather, and my uncle. My mom and grandma were thrown from the car, and my mom woke up in the hospital to the news that her father and her brother died in the car accident. Now, there's that trauma is still so raw for her. Yeah. And as growing up, it was always, don't talk about it because you'll upset Cindy, right? Yeah. And so my mom grew up in this bubble to where now she doesn't know how to deal with it. It still impacts her. And now she's in her 60s, and it's so difficult because I know she wants to take control, but she just doesn't have the correct amount of tools, right?
Yep.
So, and it's also funny because, when my grandma passed away in 97 from pancreatic cancer, we were at her house, the normal stuff, you go through all the pictures and stuff, and I see this book, and I open it up, and these are pictures of me that I've never seen before, dude.
Sure.
And one's me looking through a tree. Okay. Like peeking, smiling at my grandma. I'm wearing a purple sweater. The number's 32. I'm like, interesting. Very interesting. I'm like, my number's 32. Huh. I'm going to go a step further. This is wild.
Number meaning in baseball.
Baseball.
Baseball, yes.
Number's 32.
Yep.
Purple didn't ring a bell then.
Yep.
I was going into my freshman year of college and junior college. And, then we go to the funeral and do all that. And, I'm the pallbearer, which is mortifying for me, right? And she was being buried next to my grandfather, Bobby Lee Doster. Mm-hmm. He was born in 1932. I picked that number.
Everything sticks with us.
he was a catcher.
Yep.
I looked just like him. And his friends saw me play in junior college and I played just like him.
Yep.
Ended up going to play at LSU. There's the purple.
There it is.
Wow.
It's not surprising to me. I think if you really look back, everything that we've gone through in some way gets through to who you become. I've had very similar experiences, but it's a great story.
Yeah, it's just weird, man.
I mean, same thing with my father, my mom, my grandfather. And now with my children, I don't want to say genetic memory, but I will say that it's almost mystifying to me what can be passed on. A very, aside to what you just said, because I was younger, my grandmother, until she passed, at every event would tell the story that her grandson, me, between the ages of, say, 7 and 13 or 14, because we would do these skits at Christmas, the kids would get up and, tell a horrible joke or sing or whatever. Everyone would have their skill. And I would get up in front of my family and tell everyone that when I get older, her words exactly, I'm going to be a multimillionaire. I'm going to move to Florida. And I said, I'm going to own a golf course. I moved to Florida when I was 22. My first big project was a hospitality project in Fort Myers with Troon Golf. And I became obviously a multimillionaire. And so
many times over.
Well, one time is enough.
Yeah, exactly.
More is just more. But so it is funny, like these little things, but it also goes for the bad stuff too. And so, people have asked, how did you, or maybe you too, how did you separate the good from the bad? And I don't know that I've got a good answer other than the fact that you just have to.
This is a good segue into speaking about overcoming adversity, right?
Sure.
Because you're talking about, everybody talks about discipline, and all that kind of stuff and doing the things that we need to do every day to move forward in life. But to separate the good from the bad, right? Yep. Doesn't matter. Like if we're really trying to go for something, talk to the audience about, how you get out of your emotions at certain points in the time and still run the play, man, because I think that's where people struggle.
Well, for me, it's all about internal narratives. I have what I refer to as an absolute delusional confidence. And don't confuse that with ego. Although I have probably as big an ego as any man you've ever met, but that's a gift I give to myself. I give humble to everyone I meet. You've known me long enough to see it.
Yep.
A lot of people say it. They're all kind of, not really living that path. But my entire life, I talk to myself relentlessly. You hear these guys talking about it, but I really, really have, even from a young age, I've created this reality in my mind as a young boy that really didn't exist. In fact, it was so far from the life that I was living. I tell James about it all the time. Like, if you watched a movie about my life, you would think there's no way that could ever happen. That guy with those limited skills, with no formal education, could have never come from that point to this point. It doesn't seem real. And so when I look at that, I ask myself these questions, and it really has all come down to my internal dialogue. I tell and this is still true today. It's not like you don't get to a point in life and all of your problems are fixed. And it sure isn't fixed by money. It is a constant everyday work, I suppose, until the day that you're not able to think anymore, until you're gone.
I would assume.
There are still days, multiple times a week, where I'll say something to myself. And I say all the time, sometimes you have to tell yourself to shut up. And I do it constantly. I'll say what I would consider a form of weakness, like, oh God, I'm exhausted. I'm not going to the gym today. And then the other voice in me will say, get your ass up and go. And I've just programmed myself to combat. I call it the cheerleader and the challenger. I've got both of them in my head, and they're fighting all day long, but they work in synergy. And it is real. If I had to pick one thing, that would be the difference in my life.
See, I'm in alignment with that, right? Because every single time there's something that I need to do, like if I'm, need to get up at 4 a.m. to go to the gym and I wake up and my body's hurting a little bit.
Your first voice is like, go back to bed. It's like, man, you don't have to do that.
Like, what are you doing?
That's
like,
right.
Your beautiful wife's next to you, sleep an extra 2 hours, man, you can go later.
That's right.
But if I do that, I'm breaking my word to myself.
That's it.
And what else am I going to shortchange
everything
throughout the rest of that day? So people think it's disconnected. No. One decision is going to lead to the next one and the next one. And if you can win, decision number one, by the time you get home from the gym, because we've had this conversation, like I'm at a point in my life, I have to go early. Right. And if I do that by 6:30 a.m., I've got like a few different wins, man. And then the next task is so much simpler for me to complete. The hard ones, the hard conversation with business partners, the hard conversations with the kids and your spouse, like all these things become very doable because you're executing discipline in every single area of your life. And I just think that people, and I know it's a generalization, right? But when people come to me and say like, how do you do this? Because like, I just can't get up that early and go do it. I'm like, no, dude, you're telling yourself a story. You're letting one voice win.
That's right.
Don't listen to that voice.
That's right.
Prove them wrong.
Yeah.
That's what's keeping you where you're at.
That's it.
There's too many people doing that.
100%. And I had a really interesting conversation. I was at the Sugar Shack.
Oh, I went there a couple of weeks ago.
First time I've ever been. It was actually really great. Really great. Not sponsored by Sugar Shack.
No, absolutely.
It's just really great.
It can be if you want it to be though.
Yeah, that's
Price
right.
is right.
That's right. And a friend of my fiance was there, a highly educated man, really great, charismatic, and instantly thought he was just an entrepreneur. He was telling me that he works at a company. He's been there for 25 years. He's cultivated all of the relationships. He has all the contacts. He laid out a business model. And I'm like, you're going to crush.
Yeah.
He goes, and my wife told me I had to do it. So he had the wife's buy-in, and he goes, I just can't do it. And I said, well, let me recap. And I listed all of the positives. And I said, so why can't you do it? So he looked at me. That's kind of like an awkward moment of silence, but I'm really good at sitting in silence. You'd be surprised how much comes out of silence. And he just said, very quiet. First time the whole night he was really quiet. He goes, I'm scared. And I go, I know. Of what? And he goes, what if I fail? And I go, 100% agree. I said, just do me a favor. Do this every single time you say, what if a negative? Sit in it, absorb it, but then counter it with, what if I don't? Every time you say, what if, and it's a negative, give yourself the opposite side. And over time, that's always going to win. Every single time. And he looked at me, he goes, you know what, man? Maybe I'm going to do this. And whether he does or doesn't, that's not the point of the story. But even I still have that what if negative, but it's always outdone by the what if positive.
So funny, dude. Those thoughts go through my head every day.
Of course they do.
Like I always think, like, what if this dries up? Like what if
100%.
What if this starts to suck? Right?
And
What if
sitting that too long, you're dead.
But then I go, I laugh, I go, it ain't gonna.
That's it.
Because we're gonna keep growing, we're gonna keep doing this.
That's right.
And like, what if it's massively successful, right? And I start thinking
it takes off in a way you could never imagine, but you stopped.
Every conversation is what if this is the conversation?
Correct.
You don't know. People don't know. And the cool thing that I love about that story that you told, and this is one thing that I wish I was there, I would have been like, dude, you could be scared, but the one person that matters other than how you feel about yourself is your partner, your wife, and she's saying, go. Honor her.
That's right.
Go.
That's right.
Because if you don't, you're telling her you don't trust her.
Fair.
She believes in you, man.
Well, worse, you don't trust yourself.
Oh.
And in my humble opinion, if your wife doesn't think you believe in yourself,
it's a weak position, bro.
It's a bad spot.
It's a very bad spot, right? Yeah. There's a lot of risk in everything with this kind of stuff, right? That's right. As you know, I left corporate America in January of 2024.
Yep.
And all of 2024 is white knuckling it.
That's right.
I mean, like, at a point, like at the end of 2024, before and James and Mike and all of them know.
Yeah.
Like before this took off in December of 2024, I was taking interviews for leadership positions to go back to corporate America. Okay. Cause like I got to bridge the gap somehow.
That's right.
And then
by the way, that's not weakness.
No, it's not. Right. I'm thinking like,
you have a family.
I have a family. I have to make, because I have to make sure this is,
that's right.
This,
you have a responsibility.
Yes. I have to feed my children and they need insurance and all that stuff. So it was funny. They passed on me and they said, you're no doubt the qualified leader, but they're internal and we need to give the position to them. Yeah. We'll circle back to you in 3 months when we have more headcount and we'll do it. And we can split the team. I was like, all right. I was bummed about it and thinking like, oh my God, what if this happens? What if that happens? And I think like, what if I just execute the next interview? And I kept doing that long enough and then it exploded.
But that mindset is everything. And I think that's an overlooked statement that you made and grossly undervalued. Like, if that had happened to me, I would have said, that's probably the best thing that could have ever happened.
Mm-hmm.
Like that, whenever anything negative or bad happens, I instantly go, this happened because it was supposed to, because now the next big thing. And all of my partners in business, when they first get into business with me, it mystifies them. Like, this is the biggest deal. The company's going to 10X. It's unbelievable. Funds are escrowed. All we got to do is sign, and then it falls apart. And everyone's like, oh my God, what are we going to do? And I go, no, that's great. Because the best deal is the one that falls apart.
Mm-hmm.
It's the best deal
Mm-hmm.
because it was never going to work.
Yeah.
And so if you look at it like that, and people are like, well, how do you continually cultivate whatever level of success I have over a 25 year period of time? It's because you just got to sit back. If you execute correctly, if you treat people well, if you stay in the game and you stay positive, you never lose. Long term. I've lost plenty of times momentarily.
Absolutely. And that's
we can
okay.
talk about some big ones.
That's okay though, right?
You got to take the position that it's my fault.
Mm-hmm.
It's my fault it didn't work. Maybe I didn't present myself well at the interview. Maybe I didn't have what they need.
Mm-hmm.
I can fix those two things. Like, distress is really, in my opinion, not having control. The feel of, oh my God, someone else is in control of my life. Accountability and you take that control back. Even in a bad situation, feeling in control is 1,000,000 times better than feeling like, I don't know what to do.
Well, it's a power position, right?
That's right.
It's a position of power and confidence,
That's
right? So like, if in the audience listening and watching, if you take one of the situations you're going through right now and you give it so much power to impact your emotional state negatively and eventually impacting your physical health, you're letting it win.
That's right.
But if you sit there and say, all right, like Jocko says, good.
Yeah.
Good.
Now what?
But now what? Like taking that and turning it into a positive, right? Because one of the things that people say is like, well, look, it's easy for you to say.
I knew you were going to say it's easy for you.
It's not.
Well, it wasn't. Right. Nothing's easy until you do it enough times so that it becomes easier.
Dude.
Not easy, because I don't know if there's anything that any successful person does that is really easy.
I hope not.
Cultivated. It's practiced.
Mm-hmm.
It's pattern recognition. It's duplicity. It's all of these things that on the surface, looking at someone that's doing it, looks, oh, that's easy. Well, there's nothing easy there's a lot of things easy in my day now, but it took 25 years to get there.
Because there's systems there now, right? There's a lot of
internal systems and external
exactly.
systems.
Right. And there's a lot of failure built in, and there's a lot of lessons built in.
Yes.
So now what easy, I mean,
what's easy?
What's hard? Easy? Like whatever. Like
it's just execution.
Yes, exactly. It's like, okay, these things that were hard for me before, I just deal with them quicker now.
That's it.
And that's all it is. So that can be, titled easy. But, for the people out there that haven't really, acquired that skill yet, it's just, you have to practice it. Like the first time, because your subconscious is screaming, like, don't do that, because your brain is wired to protect you.
Agreed.
And the moment you disobey those programs is when your dome gets just fried.
Yes.
And then you move, right? And say, okay, I'm going to do something differently. I'm going to take this as a positivity, or I'm going to go to the gym or have the hard conversation. You're like, oh shit.
Yeah.
That wasn't that bad.
Agreed. Well, it's never as bad as you think it is.
Yeah. And then I could do it again.
That's right.
And again.
Yeah.
There's a level like you talking about, like skill and, the art of conversation in business. There's overcoming adversity. There's an intellectual aspect, obviously, too.
Sure.
But I think there's a high level of determination, too. And, the show is called The Determination.
Well, yes.
Just Determined Society. So, like, what would you define determination in your words?
In a word, relentless. I like to say relentless accountability, but in just a word, I'll go with relentless, because we've already talked about accountability. And it doesn't mean you have to know when to also jump ship. That's a fine art too. And that is so difficult, because you have to put that, to get into a big position, you have to have a bit of an ego.
Yeah.
And so then to be able to tell 100, 200 employees, hey, I'm your CEO, I'm your founder, things aren't going well, this is your last paycheck. that crushes your ego in a way that I can't really articulate.
Mm.
And I've been there. I've had to do it. You know, I had a $300 million loss in 2022, and I had hundreds of employees. It was a source of great pride. And I had to do a call with all of my employees and tell them this was the last paycheck you guys are ever going to get.
Okay, so that's an important thing to dig into, right? So as you just said, it was, you know, that right there was a hard thing to deal with. Like, this just wasn't, forget the money, forget the fact that the business shut down and you have to go on to the next thing. There's people's lives involved. How did you, because you're a good human being, you have a heart. How did you filter through that? And how did you make that right in your own mind? And you know, and just kind of like, hey, you know, like collateral damage, like it's not as insensitive as that, but like, this is part of it. And now I have to work my way through this. What was that process like for you?
Well, the reason behind it, we'll circle back on, but the answer is accountability. I'm going to keep using these two words because really, if I have two words in my life, that's one of the big words. But I made sure that everyone was paid for everything that they did. And that meant taking a greater loss than I had to. I made sure that all of my vendors were paid, even though I didn't have personal guarantees on everything. And so I honored the reputation that I had built. So for me, I felt like I had done everything I needed to do. I cleaned up my mess. And not everyone does that. And I'm not saying that people that do it or don't do it are right or wrong, but for me, it's the right thing to do. And because I did that, the call went incredibly well. People were sad, but they were safe. And so that's my responsibility as a leader, to take supreme accountability, because I take accountability when I win. I stand on top of that with my arms up in the air.
Or the opposite.
But if you're not standing in front of your losses, then you are, I'll go as far as to say, you're not a good leader, you're just not a good person.
Fact.
And then if you wonder why your career isn't going the way that it is, or if you wonder why I can have a couple major losses and still have people line up to stand by my side when I'm doing something different, that is the reason.
To me, do you know what I think about when you're talking about that? Integrity.
Absolutely.
I mean, you know, yes, accountability, relentless, but like, I think there's a high level of integrity in that, right? So, you know, as we go through hard things in life, you know, losses, you know, shutting companies down, people losing their jobs, it's all very sad.
It is.
Those emotions though, and the blowback is manageable if you handle it with integrity.
I agree.
And you did that, right? So that
it still doesn't mean everybody's happy.
No.
Or satisfied.
Right.
But you have to clear the deck.
That's the thing that you can control though. You can't control how somebody else filters the information, takes it in, and uses it in their own mind, right?
And some people may even disagree with it, but I feel really good about the way I behaved. And the part of this story that I think is important to hear, it's one thing if you build a company and you make some poor decisions or the market shifts. The reason in this case, my very best friend of 18 or 19 years, godfather of both my children, performed a massive act of fraud and did a bunch of things that put our company in a position that it couldn't recover from. So I was well within my legal right to just go, I didn't do it. And not pay the vendors and walk away and throw him under the bus, potentially even put him into prison. But I sat back and thought about it, and I just stood in front of it because you could argue it wasn't my fault, but everything's my fault if I want to be that leader. But it sure as shit wasn't anybody else's fault.
Right.
So yes, I agree. Their integrity. You get integrity is not something you get to choose when you show it off. Integrity is not just for moments when you want to go on social media and give someone a big tip. Integrity is when you tip somebody big every single time you go out, to the point where people know you.
Yeah.
Like, integrity is every day. Integrity is not just when people are looking. And it's the hard moments when everything about being that man of integrity really hurts. It hurts financially, it hurts emotionally. But when you do it, it doesn't just change people's perspective of you, it changes your perspective of yourself. And so in one of my biggest losses, I found probably the greatest source of pride in myself.
I love that, dude. Something great came of it, right? And,
It did. Yeah.
And it was one of those things that you may not have known you needed that, but when it came,
Massive lesson in a lot of different levels.
yeah, I mean, to me is like getting a great sense of pride in something and how you handle something, especially in the case of your partner and, you know, the godfather of your two girls is you stood in front of it. You could have sidestepped it. Right. But you did it. You hit it head on. And I think one of the biggest things that I've learned in this journey and all the conversations that I've had with successful people like yourself, it's like everybody massively successful takes those emotions and the things that are really shitty and they put their face right in front of that shit. Like you lean into it hard. And that's what we've done here. It's like, you know, everything that I've done here, like I have to lean into all the shit. Like as bad as it hurts. I mean, there was moments, you know, back when you first met me and met the boys, you know, like some people say it's soft, but for me, it was just my emotions. Like in between filmings, I would be sitting at my desk crying because I felt alone. I felt that there wasn't any viable real business for people to come in and invest in and for me to make money. My wife always told me this and I fought her tooth and nail. And like, it's like, if there was a mashup of all the times on my show that I said I should have listened to my wife, this would be probably the fucking intro to it. Is she said, keep being yourself and you will end up where you belong. You will end up where
profound. And
I'm like, yeah, it doesn't work like that here. It doesn't work like that here in this business. It's hard. It's this and that. Like I need this, I need that, I need it. She goes, everything that you're talking about, sure, eventually that will come.
Sure.
But the best part about your business is you and you don't get it yet.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, over a long enough time horizon, it's factually true what your wife said. People just stop too soon. Yeah.
And for me, it was like, no, I came up for air. You know, there was a point in, I think maybe 2024, I took a 4-month break.
What's wrong with that?
I didn't have perspective.
Yeah.
You know, and it was one day I was, you know, as you know, it used to be in the house and, you know, the family had to go upstairs. They couldn't make a sound. Don't walk too loud. Don't talk to daddy. And then my daughter was like, my youngest was 4 at that time, just wanted to see her dad when she came in from school, but they got to come through the back door. They got to go upstairs. And, you know, one night, you know, some type of argument happened between me and my wife. I'm like, you know, the gist of it was like, what do you like? I'm doing this for you guys. She goes, I need you to ask yourself a question. She goes, are you? And I got so mad. I was triggered.
Yeah, man. You get mad.
And I didn't.
Truth. When the truth comes, you get mad as men.
And it wasn't that I wasn't at the core of me, but I was displaying it differently. Right. And the outward version of it. And I, you know, my emotional regulation was a lot worse then. And I exploded. And she goes, okay, we're going upstairs. When you're done throwing your fit, we will have a conversation. Why don't you go for a walk? Whatever.
Is your wife a therapist?
No.
Okay.
She's just a spicy Latina. You bet, Jackie. You know, Jackie. So I just, you know, so I went for, you know, go for a walk or a lift and I'd come back and I didn't have perspective. I was so worried about the revenue, so worried about what I needed from somebody else to make this thing go. I was like, I can't record another show until I have perspective. In the moment I had perspective, I recorded again and it's been week after week. There hasn't been one delay. In fact, now we're 2 episodes a week. Right. So, but I worked through those things, you know, those hard points of just taking that deep breath and coming back better. What a great,
you know, I just said this some the other day, talking about scaling a business, but the same thing with yourself. It's not about getting bigger. It's about getting better. Like everyone wants to talk about how do I scale my business? I'm gonna have 2 locations, 8 locations, 12 locations. It's not about getting bigger. You have to get better before you get bigger. And if you get better, everything just gets bigger on its own. Internally, externally, everything. Like everybody wants to skip all the hard works, all the steps. Like I'm not, you're not, whoever's not successful because of what you see today. You're only successful because of all of the other horrific stuff that you had to push through to get here.
No, man.
You just got to become better. And it sucks because it's a long journey. Like this social media nonsense, and I talk about it all the time. Like it's not going to happen that way. It just isn't.
No.
And listen, it doesn't mean that it hasn't happened for some people, but fast money leaves pretty quickly. It's a long journey. And, I think, what is the expression? Everybody overestimates what they can do in a year and underestimates what they can do in 10. 10 years, when someone says, how much time do I really need to put into whatever the thing is? It's 10 years. Like, that's the number. Now, is it maybe 7 or 4 or 6? Yes. But in your mind, you need to commit to 10 years. And if you're 18, that means you're 28. If you're 28, it means you're 30. If you're 30, it means you're 48. Who gives a shit?
Doesn't matter.
It's not a long time.
Dude, it's funny because, I look back at it, right?
Yeah.
And there was moments where I think this should have happened already because of everything. Like I was so naive when I got into this space and I believed everything I saw on social media because that's just my heart.
Yeah.
Like why would somebody lie about this stuff? Like, it doesn't make any sense. Just because the type of person I am, I wouldn't do it. So I'm very honest with my journey, right? Of all the shortcomings and all the other stuff. But I started thinking in terms of, okay, wait a second, decades, right?
Right.
Like, where am I going to be in 10 years?
That's right.
So right now we're having conversations, like me and my team, every Tuesday morning at 9:30, we have a team call.
Yep.
My nephew JT was there and watched the whole thing today. We're talking about things now that are 5 years out.
Sure.
So like in 5 years, I'm looking for this deal.
That's right.
It's 10 years.
Yep.
It's 10 years. Sorry, 9 years.
Yep.
Will it happen sooner than 5? I think so.
Yeah, maybe.
But if not, that's fine.
That's right.
But the better part of a decade is what you really need to build something massive.
I agree. And for people listening, that doesn't mean that I want to be whatever in 10 years. You just sit and wait.
Like an astronaut.
It's been 8 years. I got I call it reverse engineering. So if my big goal is 10 years, now that shows me how to reverse engineer and what I need to be doing as soon as even tomorrow. Like you take out a piece of paper and say 10 years, 9 years, 7 years, 5 years, 3 years, 1 year, 1 month. And you build out that model. I did this as a young man. I built out what I wanted to become and I did it systematically. Just like if someone said to me, and this is why where my delusional confidence comes, can you do this? And if I don't have the skill, I know I can do almost anything in 90 days. Because if 90 days, I need to do this thing. I need to run a 5-minute mile. Day one, I'm going to go run a mile and see what my time is. And now I know I've got 90 days and I can track my progress every single day. And you can do that with any skill, any goal, anything you want to do in life. It only seems impossible when you sit there and you look at the top of the goal and go, geez, it's not even possible. But it is when you break it down into small steps.
Because what you're talking about now, right, is getting a base level.
That's it. Where am I today?
Where am I at right now?
That's right.
And then planning out your strategy and then your daily strategic activity to get to that 90-day goal. Right. And so let's talk about you look at that big goal, right? Like the 5-minute mile. You're never going to get it. You're never going to get it unless you run that mile that day, that day one.
In 12 minutes or 9 minutes or
whatever
it is.
Yeah. And then start your process. And then every single day, the micro movements.
That's right.
Okay, maybe I need to have less food here, more food here.
That's right.
Implement this, do some sprints, maybe some cross-training days to rest. And then you start to get better. And so you're seeing all of your work on a process that you're sticking to and being disciplined.
Sure.
And then all of a sudden you hit that goal.
That's it.
And everybody goes, oh my God, you run you hit 5-minute mile, 90 days. What's it feel like? I go, not as good as this stuff.
That's right.
Because that's where you're made.
That's it. Yep. My daughter's boyfriend said something to me. This is like about a year ago, or at the dinner table. And he said, you were an athlete one day or one time.
Yeah.
I was so offended. One time. First of all, I'm always an athlete.
I'm still an athlete.
I was so offended by that statement. So I went right at him. I go, hey, pick a sport, pick a skill. Let's go. 90 days. I said it. 90 days.
Dinner's over.
Dinner's over. So he goes, basketball. Well, I go, you're 6'7". Let's get real.
Yeah.
But I'll still accept if that's the only challenge.
Yeah.
So I use this example now because it happened. He said, well, all right, we'll run a mile so you can go as fastest. So I go, perfect, done. Now I asked my daughter, what is he, because he runs, he doesn't track. And I think it was like a 6 minute, 5 second mile, or whatever it was. So I'm like, okay, I might be in trouble here.
Yeah.
So I did that. I went out, I ran my mile. I'm not a runner. I'm a body. I'd work out. Like, I lift heavy things. I put them down. That's it.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think my first one was like 9:13. I was like, oh man, oh man. But you know what? This comes to me being a little sociopathic and relentless when I get locked into something, which is a skill. My next day was instead of 9:13, it was 9:11. And I just kept cutting off seconds. And I always thought, we won't get to whether I beat him or not, but
I do want to know your time. You're going to tell me your final time.
Well, I didn't beat him, but I went from 9:13 to like 6:37 or 6:42 in 90 days.
And he will never call you an athlete a long time ago ever again.
Well, it did open up a lot of trash talking, which has been really great for the relationship. But regardless, I think the example is in there. You know, the idea that every day you can be, and people underestimate the value of an inch, the value of a second, the value of whatever it is. And I've built a career on that kind of model. This is where I want to go. This is where I am. What do I have to do to get that? And I think it might have even started with baseball. This is something you probably can. Like, how do you get better at hitting? We'll take 1,000 swings. How do you get better at fielding? Take 1,000 ground balls. Well, so it's that simple. I just have to do the thing over and over and over, and I get better. And that was ingrained into me. Hey, you know, your time is down. Well, shit, I gotta do sprints after practice, or I gotta run more. Like, it's just you need to do the thing.
It brings a certain level of confidence, right? When you're out there executing something every single day, you gain a certain confidence that not a lot of people have.
Yes.
Right? Because you're putting something out there and you're doing the hard thing and staying disciplined and doing it, when most people are like, all right, well, I did it 5 days in a row.
Right. I'm never gonna.
I'm tired.
Right.
No.
Yeah, who cares?
No.
Yep.
No, you do the thing, right? And it's so funny because a lot of people, they focus on how do I do this? Like, what do I need to do? It's like, take initiative and just run. Or that the kid out there that doesn't have the proper instruction, right, to field a ground ball 1,000 times the correct way, but goes and does it, is gonna outwork and beat the person that has the skill. Because once that person gets even close, a good coach can make that person into a superstar. Yeah. Because they'll outwork them any day of the week, right?
Action beats inaction 100 out of 100 times.
Yeah.
That's it.
Dude.
And we're going through that now with my daughter who's 18, you know, the next stage of life. I'm going through all of these very profound thought things I never thought I would with, you know, Sophia turning 18 and, you know, my whole life, you know, you turn 18 and get out and go figure out the world. And now I'm a father. I'm like, I don't remember being scared, and I'm not scared for my daughter, but I think to myself, I don't feel like I'm done parenting. I feel like now this is a whole new phase of parenting that should be occurring. And it's really interesting to go through as an entrepreneur. And she has huge ambitions of being an entrepreneur and taking dad out and showing me what's up.
That's great.
Doing all those things. And so I'm going through this balancing act of how much is too much help, how much is not enough. I am still her father. I'm not her boss. I'm not this. And so, life you go through these phases in life that
those are
interesting.
Those are interesting points. And like, I've got, 6-7 years before Bobby gets there. Right. And I have an 8-year-old daughter and, a 6-year-old daughter. But the thing that I'll tell you about this specific child, Sophia, you said it on air, so I'll say it is I don't think you have to worry about her.
Oh, I know I don't.
Because I remember having a conversation with you, and this is something I want to share with the audience, maybe a year or two ago, maybe 2 years ago.
Okay.
You bought her first car.
Yeah. Oh.
And she could have probably went and picked, like, I want that Mercedes. I want, this BMW. Yep. What does she?
In fact, I offered it.
What does she want?
It made me choke up because I say one of my proudest moments as a father, maybe as a human being. She said, I thought about it, and I know that you'll buy me a Mercedes or BMW or whatever, but I want this car. She showed me. Now, it was a Chevy Equinox, not a cheap car by any standard, but by the measure of what she could have simply by asking for it, I would say a humble choice. And I said, okay, why? And she said, well, I thought a lot about it, and I don't want the kids at my school to think I'm a rich, spoiled kid. And the first time I get a nice car, I want to be the one that bought it. I mean, I'm done. I did my job as a parent.
Do you see my point? Like that's the thing. It's like that was probably one of the turning points, because I think it's probably when I met you, maybe a little bit before that. But then we had that conversation, and I'm like, wow, that's a good dad. Like, obviously somewhere along the lines that awareness was instilled in her, and it created a bigger, greater respect for you. So that's a pretty damn cool story, man. And like those are the types of individuals that go out and know that the world doesn't owe them shit.
That's right.
And they work, and they work, and then they end up on top because they're willing to do the small things.
That's right.
Yeah. Wow, man.
So I share one more, since I'm a proud dad. She's sourcing companies that potentially I can invest in and she can run. And so she brought me a $75 million tech company that was for sale. Little, ambitious.
Yeah. Well,
but the point of the story is, I looked at her and I chuckled, and I said, I made a mistake. I said, what do you know about a tech company? She looked into my soul, grabbed my soul by the neck, and said, what does that matter, Dad? Because I've taught her so emphatically to get in the game and figure it out. That if I had written the check, she would have had zero hesitation to walk into a $75 million tech company like, I'm the new CEO and I'm figuring shit out. So
it's a skill, man. That's a gift, bro. That's a good story.
Some might call it crazy. In fact, most do. She's not going to college. She's chosen not to go to college. She has chosen to repurpose her tuition that I was going to pay to go towards the first company that she chooses. I asked her what company she wants, and she said, I'm too young to decide. So she's looking. So like, it's levels of maturity that I'm not even sure I have at 46, but it came from somewhere. And trust me, I don't deserve the credit. I don't think any parent deserves or doesn't deserve where their kids end up, because there's evidence that you can be an incredible parent and have a horrible kid, and have a horrible parent become an incredible kid. And so that's me just not taking anything from my daughter.
Right.
Had influence from me, for sure. She's seen me persevere and struggle and succeed, sure. But she also could have just been a spoiled brat too. So that's her. That's not me.
So that brings up a topic, right?
Yep.
So the American way, societal norm, do good in school, get good grades, go to college, graduate from college.
Yep.
In some aspects, it makes sense. If you're going to go play sports, you got to go to college unless you're going to get drafted. Like, cool.
Yeah.
But there's more and more entrepreneurs now that are becoming more comfortable with their children saying, I don't want to go to college. I want to build business.
Sure.
That, like, I'm okay. Like, for me, like if my kids go, like, and they see what this is and this continues to grow, I don't want to go to college. I want to learn the family business.
Sure.
I want to start something on my own. I'll be like, all right, dope, let's do it.
Yeah.
Now my wife, on the other hand, comes from, Quito, Ecuador, a third world country, right? And the only way out of Quito was for her to get straight A's in this public school so she could get to the States. So there's a different value structure there.
Sure.
And I respect it, but it's becoming increasingly normal for children that want to learn entrepreneurship, stick around, don't go to college, and they learn.
Yeah. I've always taken the position of, how about we just let the kid decide what the kid wants?
How about that, huh?
What an amazing thing.
How about that?
And I've gotten a lot of criticism by everyone, my old partners, administration at schools. I don't want to say that I don't care about education, because I think there are parts of education that are essential. And I'm not defining education as book smart, street smart, but just education in general. But all I really want from my daughter is for her to be incredibly happy. And if that means that she is a Fortune 500 CEO, awesome. If that means she's a Starbucks barista and she's incredibly happy, awesome. If that means she's a mom of 3 and her husband is supporting her, awesome. Like, I've had incredible hopes and dreams from my daughter with no specificity ever.
I like it.
Right? And I think that's a mistake parents make, is they decide who their kids should be, or worse, they decide who they can't be And like we talked about, kind of come full circle, stuff sticks with you.
Mm-hmm.
So my whole life, my girls have always, hey, Dad, what do you think I should do? What do you think of this? And almost 0% of the time do I give a straight answer. Sometimes it frustrates them because it has never been my job to teach my daughters what to think. I've always looked at it as my job to teach them how to think. And so hot button topic, like when it came to religion, my children had chosen their own religion when they were very young. I talked to them about options. I said, there's Christianity, there's Catholicism, there's Buddhism, there's atheism, there's the Big Bang, there's all of these things. And we got to these deep conversations about each of them because who am I? And this is going to be a trigger for a lot of people, but I have my beliefs, but that does not mean that is what my child's belief has to be. And it's so much more than me just saying, I don't want to make a decision for my kids. I'm trying to teach them I taught them from a very young age how to analytically think about topics and decide for themselves. I empowered my kids at an age that most kids aren't empowered at 18, 19, 20, 30. Like, wow, wait a minute. So I'm little, but I still have the power to think through a topic and make a decision for myself. I think it fundamentally changed the way that they think.
I would agree with that because the education system here in America is designed to just base the student's worth on how well they take a test. They don't really teach them how to think.
Agreed.
Right. And it's funny because you mentioned religion, and I'll probably trigger some people with this too. But I'm just going to say it because it's real, it's raw. My wife said at one point, we need to get Mia baptized. I'm like, why?
Yep.
She goes, well, because, she's.
My family did it to me.
Yeah. I go, but she didn't choose it.
Right.
So I'm always big. I'm big on, and not poo-pooing Catholicism. I respect it, but for me, it's someone needs to choose that.
I agree.
Because then they own it.
That's right.
I made my choice in college. I own it.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And I want to give the opportunity for my children to do the same thing, man.
Sure.
So it's that, again, that is a hot topic and a triggering thing.
Yep.
Because we're not debunking anything that we don't believe in it.
That's
I'm
right.
just people have the right to make their own decisions. They should.
That's right. And a lot of people will say, well, a child's too young to make a decision. Well, there are a lot of other things that we're allowing children to make their own decisions about that we won't get into. But this
now I want to.
Listen. But again, I think for me anyway, it was way bigger than religion or way bigger than this. Another thing I did that is hotly debated is I taught my children to challenge authority. And now respectfully.
Of course.
So, if a math teacher, take an example from 4th or 5th grade, treated them unfairly, my daughter was the one that would respectfully say, I don't think the way that you're treating me is fair. And the school called me and she was in trouble for it. And I adamantly disagreed. And it's happened so often that they just stopped calling me.
They don't call Derik.
They're so happy that she's graduated.
It's get the chick out of here, dude.
Get her out of here.
Thank God. She makes too much worldly sense.
Too much worldly sense.
It's funny. So, because, my little one will come home.
Yep.
She's very empathetic.
Yep.
She feels everything. She's just incredible.
Yeah.
Very talented. And she'll talk about something that happened during the day.
Yeah.
And she goes, she's sassy. I don't think I was treated fairly there. And I think it was wrong.
It's great.
And I think I need to say something. And my wife goes, honey, when you go and you say something to your teacher, or if someone treats you poorly, I don't care who it is, say, I feel there's another way we can talk about I don't like how I feel when you talk to me like that.
Yeah.
Can we try again? She's 6.
It's huge.
But dude, I'm with you on that though.
But so many people squash that. And if you don't think that presents itself in your child when they're an adult, when they're afraid to speak up for themselves in really important situations, you're dead wrong.
Yeah. They're going to be in corporate situations. They're going to be used up working on weekends because they can't draw the boundary.
Or with their partner, or with their friendships, or with whoever.
Yeah.
And so, a little bit of a tangent there, but it all does kind of tie in too.
Yeah. No, I love it because this conversation has been a wide variety of things, right? It's about giving value and not judging what value we bring to the audience. And we talked about business. We talked about losses. We talked about process, accountability, all these different things. And we hit on parenting and, how to, overcome certain things and And dude, it's just been an amazing conversation.
Great.
I just, I don't want to leave the conversation without you talking a little bit about 3F management though. So can you talk about that a little bit? Cause there's a lot of, this show was an entrepreneurial show for so long until we switched to, a different category and we've hung on to the audience. So, there might be somebody out there that needs 3F management.
Yeah, well, I'll try to make this as concise as humanly possible. I started 3F management in 2002. I called it a venture capital firm because it sounded fancy and really it wasn't a venture capital firm at that point in the sense that I wasn't bringing in other people's money. I was building brands from the ground up and I've built over 30 of them, which when I say it every time, it seems incredible to me that it's true. I just exited my 33rd company 2 weeks ago in Texas. And then at the end of say 2019, I had owned 100% of all the companies. And so I had a lot of great people that worked with me because no one has ever worked for me. Everyone has always worked with me. And that's been a mantra of mine for my entire career. And it's been very meaningful to people and to me.
I like that.
I decided that I wanted to start bringing in JVs. And so every company that I own for the past 3 or 4 years, I have not owned 100%. I've had really strong operational partners and a variety of success, for a variety of reasons. But that was kind of the benchmark. And so we gathered over the course of a 3-year period about 46 different brands and companies. And over the past 12 months, we sorted and sold. And the reason that we did that is, as you can imagine, 46 different entrepreneurs, 46 different personalities. And a lot of times when they hear, whether it's my name or a founder or 3F manager or venture capital, they believe that means you're going to get our resources, our time, our energy, our connections, and you're going to sit back and the company's just going to explode. That sounds silly to an entrepreneur, but it is so true. And so that's a lot of words to say that we are once again changing direction. We're going to now, I was just building and then I was just JVing. And now we're going to have a nice mix of both building corporately owned assets and being very choosy with the entrepreneurs that we partner with. And so that's kind of the next iteration. We are agnostic to industry. I don't care what you're doing. I care how you're doing it. I don't care how much money you may be making today. I care about who you are and if you fit in my ecosystem. And that's 3F management.
I love it, man. Yeah. I love it, dude. Yeah. I love it. Dude, thank you so much for coming on the show, man.
Conversation at the gym.
I know, seriously. It's like, this thing on? Hello. So everybody that just listened to the show, watched it, do us a favor and share the show with somebody you know, love, and trust that will get a lot of value out of Derik's stories and the things that he has explained that help him become as successful as he is in his life. So we appreciate you. Share the heck out of it. Until next time, stay determined.
Shawn French, what up? This one luck, I let the pain inspire me. I put my all in everything I'm doing. Up until it's done, I'm me for the entirety. I put it in overtime, I be working. Just know I'ma go for mine, cause I earned it. They watching, I know it's time, I confirmed it. A whole society determined to